Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Heads Up Hockey Podcast with your host, Jersey Joe. You know I'm with Draft Prospects Hockey. I'm a video scout for them covering the USHL and the NCAA. But also this month, is a big under-18 junior tournament. So there's going to be a lot going on. So if for some reason I'm not, doing anything on the podcast in between, that's because I'm making draft player profiles for Draft Prospects Hockey. So, in other words, if you like seeing me also write for Pucks and Pitchforks, we're all online, on X, everything else. Also, if you really like this podcast, give it a like on YouTube, subscribe, and also do a positive rating. Helps get the word out for the podcast. Anyways, so after a Heischerless and Jack Hughesless game, there needs to be a lot of accountability when it comes to coaching. And I'm not talking about Lindy Ruff. I'm talking about a particular coach who needs to set a higher standard on the bench. And that, my friends, is Ryan McGill. McGill should be held accountable, with the Devils being in the top 5 in goals allowed per game. And that's unacceptable because this team made the playoffs last year. And I get that Damon Severson and Ryan Graves are no longer on the team, but you got some other veteran pieces on defense like Dougie Hamilton and John Marino. Meanwhile, you got Luke Hughes learning on the fly. You got guys that can play rather well on defense, but they're being undercoached. They're also making some high-risk plays, and they're making some really dumb plays on top of it. Now, when it comes to having a shepherd and the flock of sheep, you need to keep the herd together. So what I'm trying to say is you need that coach to guide you through the fields, especially trying to get away from the Foxes. So you want to go against danger, you need to add some Sasquatches. You have to protect your best players. Guys like Timo Meier can't just do all the lifting, both physically and being able to intimidate and agitate. You need to get some other guys that can be physical on the ice and be really good leaders. I've been saying this before. You need guys like a Sammy Blais and a Radko Gudas, because you need a guy on defense that's a big thumper who can hit big time, play physical, get in the nose of other teams' best players who are trying to gun your best player on your team. So there will be far less liberties against a guy like a Jack Hughes, a Luke Hughes. You basically get what I'm saying. Sammy Blais is a tough customer. He's one of the top guys in hits in the NHL along with Radko Gudas. And so Sammy Blais is a forward, and he also has Stanley Cup experience with the Blues. And those are guys that help you win those tough-to-win games. You can't just rely all on skill and youth. You need to have some older veterans that can really, absolutely do a lot of good favors for a team like an upcoming team in the New Jersey Devils who are looking to contend again. So Tom Fitzgerald did say that he needs to make a trade to help add some defense and physical size for his Devils. And it's important that you add this dynamic to a roster, because if you don't, teams that can't skate with the Devils or but can't beat them offensively, they're going to just try and slow you down and out-physical you. And when you get to the playoffs, it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to be slower paced, more physical. It's going to be endurance, a lot of mind games, stuff like that. You have to be a hybrid. And it's not all on the goaltending. in my honest opinion, I get Vitek Vanacek does need to improve a here and there. Covering the post a little bit better. Also covering the breakaways a little bit more. But I think it's a lack of confidence in the defense more. And there's a lot of growing pains. Yes, we all knew it in the offseason, but Ryan McGill needs to be held to a high standard. Tom Fitzgerald needs to do his job in improving that defense so that way not only keep a lot of scoring chances reduced, you allow your goaltender to relax a little bit more and be able to settle in a little easier. Also, the Devils could theoretically go out and get another goaltender, but you're really not helping out your goaltender until you solve the physicality problem and you get someone on defense that could absolutely improve your team's overall structure. Now, it might be a month or so until we get Jack Hughes back, but this team can score goals. They just need to start adding the defense again. So basically, what I say is that defense and great goaltending win games. You can't do anything without it because if you can't keep as many pucks out of your net, you're not going to win that many games. So as we talk about defense on this podcast, I would like to transition over to what I've been covering over at Draft Prospects Hockey for you guys. And one of the top defensemen in this year's draft, not named Sam Dickinson. This guy's actually going to be far better in Artyom Levshunov out of Belarus. So here it goes. Last year for the Green Bay Gamblers, Levshunov in 62 games had 42 points, 13 goals, 29 assists. And he did have an assist in 3 playoff games. So what does this mean? As of now, in 2023-2024, the Michigan State defenseman in Artyom Levshunov, the Belarusian, who is 6'2" and 198 pounds, similar to Simon Nemec, is a offensive defenseman first. So when you get these guys playing D1 hockey, they're going to have a lot more experience. They're going to end up getting ready for the next couple seasons, like 2 seasons, 3 seasons max. And when they get to the pro level, they're going to learn the ins and outs. Like, for instance, Luke Hughes, he played college hockey for 2 years at Michigan University for the Wolverines. And I will say this. When you play D1 level hockey, players are more aware defensively and they're more physical. And nothing against the United States Hockey League. It's a very competitive hockey league. But these are guys who are about 18 years and older. Guys that are young adults who are past that time in their life when, your puberty phase is over. Those emotional feelings are harnessed at the college level. So there is a lot of growing and a lot of learning at the NCAA level. So what I'm trying to say is Levshunov is very well aware offensively. He is a plus 12, so he improved over his USHL minus 15 with the Green Bay Gamblers. So he's aware defensively in knowing what he can do, but also as he plays more games, which is probably another 31 games, 32 games, it's going to be like half an NHL season or less than that. So when guys defensively and forward-wise graduate from the college level, or even guys from Europe per se, they do play like the first half of an NHL season and they start to hit a wall. And it's normal. I've seen it with Jesper Bratt before. I've seen it happen with Igor Sharangovich. I've seen it happen even with the best of players from Europe and, the minor league and developmental league level, where they get used to playing a full 82 season. So he's just one of those guys that I think in this year's draft class will likely go 3rd through 6th. But for me, if I was choosing a defenseman for a need and I was first overall, I would pick him. I honestly would. But at the same time, if I'm a team that is in need of a center, you're going with Macklin Celebrini. He's not so much Jack Hughes level, but he's a little bit closer to Jonathan Taves because he's sound well with the Selke Trophy type game, solid offensive player, amazing hands, very creative, a lot faster than Jonathan Taves, but I'll just put it at that. But if you're really in need for a really phenomenal shooter, you're going with Cole Eiserman. That kid can rip the puck very quickly, similar to Austin Matthews. The way he shoots it is just like Austin Matthews. And he plays in the United States Hockey League for the USNTDP. So he is just one of those guys that is so sound offensively, and when he takes it to the next level, he's going to be making some organization in the NHL very happy to have him. But I will put it this way. I would much rather look at it this way as a Devils fan. Having them 7-4-1, even without your top 2 players, you were still able to go, 500 without them? That's decent. But you got to clamp down defensively, and you got to get guys like a Sammy Blais or a Radko Gudas. I honestly believe that the way the Devils are built now, and the Devils will be built in the future, they will need to keep drafting guys with a physical edge, strong defensive play. And there's a lot of really excellent defensemen in this year's draft. And regardless of where the Devils pick, they're scouts. And I know this from Draft Prospects Hockey, being able to look at players who are really good defensemen this year. There are a lot of really sound defensemen in this class, and I am very excited about it. And I am jumping for joy looking at these players because you just don't know on the day of the draft who the Devils select. But at the same time, I also want the Devils to do well defensively, keeping the puck out of their own zone majority of the time, keeping the high danger shots very low, and just being able to play a more sound hockey game. And it's going to happen. Tom Fitzgerald's going to work it out. I'm not freaking out like other keyboard warriors on, X or Facebook. I don't buy that. But I always remind people, when you have these young guys and you have some older veterans, it takes a little bit to work the kinks out. And I see Ryan McGill will eventually fix it, or he's going to have to get replaced by a better defensive coach under Tom Fitzgerald. And it's better than, removing your head coach, because then you're really going nuclear. So that's just me being rational, but you got to think about those little nuances. And teams, kind of like the Hurricanes, they've had the same coach, pretty much the same defensive coach and all that other stuff. You really don't hear too much about all those other teams moving on coach to coach, year in, year out. So when there's a lot of stability, there's a lot of familiarity, which is why it's good to change up the message a little bit and the way you want to defend is to keep your opponent not just to the outside. You want to tire them out. You want to frustrate them, but you don't want to take bad penalties. So discipline is going to be a must-have when it comes to the NHL level. And in Utica, you're going to have guys like Daniel McGill and Satoru Hataka who are going to be coming up, maybe halfway through the season. And maybe if the Devils go into the playoffs, you get the roster expansion and you expand the roster for the playoffs and you can see who can help out in a moment's notice. But I think the Devils will eventually make a trade or a waiver claim that could bolster the lineup. Excuse me. I had a little bit of a hiccup there. But defensively, they're going to look for someone who's really strong on the defensive side. They need guys with snarl, grit. And I talked about it before. We need a lot of Sasquatches going forward. And I believe in the physicality aspect. You can't be all speed, finesse, scoring, power play success. You need to acquire a few extra intimidating bodies. And I've listened to other Devils content creators, and they said that they wouldn't be afraid of playing against their own team. And you know what? After what Ross Colton did, the Romsville, New Jersey native did, and even Connor Clifton, a New Jersey native from Long Branch, I'm going to say this. Ross Colton nearly took out Luke Hughes. And you had an incident where Jack Hughes lost his edge versus St. Louis right by Jordan Bennington. Could have been tripped by Justin Falk. And luckily it was the shoulder and wasn't as bad as we thought, according to people with knowledge. Oh, wow. Another goal by Kyle Connor, if I see that right. So, yeah, definitely the Devils are going to have to get a little bit smarter defensively because they can't allow mismanaged pucks and other teams' power forwards who run and gun and dangle around. Kind of like that. That's just an unbelievable goal by Kyle Connor to sneak it under around the pads of UC Saros, the Finnish netminder. And Saros kind of looked like Vitek Vanacek sprawling down and just missing the puck. And that costed them another goal right there. So that would have been Nashville down 2-1 and could have been easily to strike back. But you look at it this way, Nashville, they do have good forwards. Their defense is more sound than New Jersey's right now, and I'm not trying to trash the defense. I'm trying to raise concern. But hear me out. Everything's going to be okay, but Tom Fitzgerald just needs to make some improvements, and maybe I won't sound like a broken record, and I would definitely will be on the Uncle Puckers podcast later on sometime this week, and before you know it, the Devils are playing the Capitals, and keep an eye out for any upcoming articles I write there. So at Pucks and Pitchforks, I am Jersey Joe, and have a great day, everybody.